You know, there's a kind of pain that's different from all others. Betrayal. When it comes from your own family. It isn't just a wound. It feels more like a shattering. It messes with your head, makes you question your reality, and leaves you wondering, am I even allowed to hurt this much? The answer is yes, you are. And today, we're going to talk about the path back, the path to reclamation.
This just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? Pain from the outside world is one thing. You can kind of brace for it. But when it comes from the people who were supposed to be your safe place, your family, well, devastation is pretty much the only word for it. It's a completely different animal.
Okay, so let's really get into that. Why does this specific kind of betrayal feel so fundamental? It's because it's not just a personal attack. It feels like the very ground you're standing on has just cracked wide open. It's a fracture in your entire emotional foundation.
I mean, think about it like this. When a friend or a coworker betrays you, as much as it hurts, we can kind of process it. We can tell ourselves, well, they weren't my family, they weren't obligated to love me. But when it comes from inside your own home, there's no script for that. There's no logical box to put it in. There's just this deep, confusing wound that time alone doesn't seem to fix.
And all that confusion, it spirals into these questions, these haunting questions that just echo in your mind. It's like a constant whisper that makes you doubt everything. Your memories, your gut feelings, even your own worth. This isn't just about holding a grudge. It's about trying to make sense of a reality that completely shakes up who you thought you were.
So this brings us to something that's, well, it's a bit more complex. You're not just dealing with the pain of what did happen, you're also mourning the dream of what you always believed should have happened. You're grieving the loss of something you never really had in the first place.
And there's actually a name for this feeling. It's called invisible grief. It's a loss that doesn't get a funeral. There are no sympathy cards, no ceremony. The world doesn't really give you permission to grieve it. But just because it's invisible to others doesn't mean it isn't heavy. That pain is absolutely 100% real.
And you feel that absence in so many ways, don't you? It's the hug that never came when you were crying. It's the "I'm so proud of you" that was never said. It's the protection you needed but were denied. That empty space, that absence, it becomes just as loud and just as painful as any action that was taken against you.
This is where the internal chaos so often leads to self-blame. We start asking ourselves these questions because, in a strange way, if we can blame ourselves, maybe the pain feels a little more in our control. It's a survival tactic, really. It's our mind just trying to make sense of a void that feels unbearable. But let's be perfectly crystal clear about this. Wanting to feel safe in your own home, wanting to be hugged and respected and believed, these are not extravagant wishes. They were, and they still are, fundamental emotional necessities. Grieving for them isn't being dramatic, it's an act of self-validation.
And you know, it is so easy to fall into that comparison trap. That little voice that whispers, oh, but other people had it so much worse. And yeah, maybe that's true, but grief isn't a competition. So the most important thing to remember is this. Your pain is valid. Period. Full stop. You are allowed to mourn what your heart needed and never got.
So acknowledging that pain is the huge first step. The next one? It's having the courage to actually name it for what it is, and that is the turning point. That's when you start moving out of the isolation of silence and into the power of your own truth.
It's like this unwritten rule, right? Society tells us that talking about family betrayal is, well, it's taboo. We're taught to just hide it, to swallow it. But that silence doesn't protect anyone. It just turns into a cage that convinces us we are totally and completely alone in this. But I'm telling you, you're not.
So what does the path out of that cage even look like? Well, it starts right here. First, just acknowledging the truth without making any more excuses. Second, you name the betrayal. You call it what it is, even the quiet stuff like neglect. And finally, you start to reclaim your voice. And listen, it doesn't have to be a shout from the rooftops. Sometimes the most powerful healing starts with just a whisper to yourself.
And this right here, this is a moment of pure, uncut clarity. They might say they love you 100 times a day, but if there is zero accountability for the harm they've caused, that's not love, that's control. Saying that out loud might sting, but wow, it is also the beginning of freedom.
Once you have that clarity, you can move into the final and honestly the most empowering phase of this whole journey. It's the radical act of choosing yourself and actively, fiercely protecting your own peace. We're often taught that protecting ourselves from our own family is some kind of betrayal of love.
But let's reframe that right now. When the very people who are supposed to love you are the ones who are damaging your spirit, choosing to protect your peace is not a betrayal. It is a reclamation of your own well-being.
And oh yeah, you can bet that the first time you say no, or you skip that family gathering, or you just set a firm boundary, guilt is going to show up to the party. But listen, that guilt isn't a stop sign. It is not telling you you're doing something wrong. It's just the leftover residue of an old pattern where you were always expected to just absorb everything. And what happens when you start to push through that guilt? What are the actual results of protecting your peace? They are so real. They are tangible. You actually start to notice what it feels like when your nervous system isn't buzzing in fight or flight mode all the time. You sleep better. You laugh, like a real from-the-belly laugh. You begin to live a life that's guided by your own intentions, not just by someone else's expectations.
Ultimately, this is what it all comes down to. Protecting your peace doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you finally care enough about yourself to stop setting yourself on fire just to keep other people warm. It is a profound act of self-respect.
And we're going to end right here with this one final thought. That choice, the choice to stop betraying yourself in the name of family, to finally put your own peace and your own well-being first, that might just be the most courageous and the most loving thing you will ever do. And that is where true peace finally gets a chance to bloom.